Something has gone very, very wrong with the Irish diet.
We're all over-consuming sugar in Ireland.
Consumption of sugar has tripled over the past 100 years.
Sugar is everywhere. It's hidden sugar.
Added sugar is public enemy #1.
Unless we do something dramatic,
the children of today may be the first generation in centuries to have shorter lifespans than their parents.
we need to cut back.
When consumed in excess, it causes liver damage.
Heart attack, stroke, kidney disease, blindness, amputation, dementia and depression.
And we need to fight back.
The politics of sugar are the same as the politics of tobacco.
35 years ago, we had doctors still smoking.
What cigarette do you smoke, Doctor?
We had children's cartoons aimed to get kids smoking.
In 50 years' time, we will look back in horror.
It's time to change our toxic relationship with sugar.
Okay, so this is a 4-year-old girl who's admitted for extraction. She's had some abscesses on her front teeth, lots of decay. These are her primary molars that should have lasted her till she's age 12, but actually that we're going to have to extract them today. Elevator again, please. No, it's just disintegrating. Elevator, please.
Decay is always caused by sugar. Follow-on milks that are marketed very heavily at young mothers have a lot of sugar in them. Teething biscuits that are given to children, and they may be marketed with added vitamins and iron. They're very high in sugar and they can be very damaging. The most extreme case I saw was this summer with a little 6-year-old who needed 12 teeth removed. She had stopped talking in school. She had stopped smiling. She was unable to eat any solid food at that stage because her mouth was so sore.
And was sugar the cause?
Yes, absolutely. Sugar was the only culprit in that case.
What was she eating?
It wasn't so much what she was eating. She was drinking apple juice all day, every day as her drink.
100 children a week facing hospital is just one symptom of Ireland's massive sugar problem.
We are one of the highest consumers of sugar in the world. I'll always say to people who are not Irish who've moved in to be very cautious of the sugar culture within Ireland.
Sugar culture is a good way to describe our relationship with added sugar. We love it. The Irish are the 4th highest consumers in the world. We are ahead of the UK, we are ahead of France, we are nearly 20 times the average in India.
Ketchup.
I've always been a calorie counter. I've always read labels, but when I looked in my kitchen, I was shocked by how sugar had managed to slip unnoticed into my family's diet. But then again, there are more than 50 different names to describe forms of sugar.
When I'm looking at all these foods, I realize that as a family, we are eating far more sugar than I thought.
And that is typical of many Irish families, because when you forensically examine our favorite foods, you will find added sugar lurking where you might least expect it, and at levels that are shockingly high.
Savoury foods, for example, our pizzas here and crisps, which are both very popular processed foods, have sugar added to them. Not as much, obviously, as the sweet foods, but they do have sugar added. I think it's important, David, to talk about sugar-sweetened drinks. The evidence is now very clear that they are linked to childhood obesity. The average can is about 330 mils, and we're talking about 9 or 10 or even 11 teaspoonfuls of sugar in the average can. So this is getting well over our quota of sugar for the day in one sugar-sweetened drink. Let's just look at the Actimel here. That small container actually contains 2.5 spoonfuls of sugar. And then another product that's very popular is the Mueller range, and we're actually talking here 5 teaspoonfuls of sugar. If we're talking then, I suppose, about the more treat foods, the bar of chocolate, there's actually 7.5 teaspoonfuls of sugar if we ate the 8 squares. A club milk, you're talking about 3 teaspoonfuls of sugar. If you're going to have your coffee, would you have 1 or 2 coconut creams? There's 1 teaspoonful of sugar in each of those. So if you have that and you add sugar to your tea or your coffee, you can see how it mounts up.
It adds up very, very quickly.
It does, it does.
Seeing how sugar is added to so many foods, the sweet and the savoury, explains how the average Irish person is eating about half an adult male's body weight in added sugar a year, teaspoon by teaspoon. So how did all this extra sugar creep into our diet?
After World War II, we were the thinnest country in Europe. And then we caught up through the 50s and 60s, and putting on weight was seen as a good thing. We were about level with the rest of Europe by the 70s.
And by 2030, Ireland is predicted to be the fattest nation in Europe, from thinnest to fattest in 80 years. The finger of blame is pointed at our diet, especially since the 70s, when food manufacturers, following health concerns, reduced fat content, with consequences we are only now understanding.
When they took the fat out, they had to do something, because when you take the fat out, the food tastes like cardboard. They added salt and they added sugar. And they added sugar in such a way as to basically make it irresistible.
In Ireland today, our 5 to 12-year-olds are getting, on average, 70 to 80 kilocalories of energy from sugar-sweetened drinks. 50 years ago, it didn't register.
The World Health Organization is worried about how much free sugar we are consuming. This is the sugar that is added to make our food and drink taste sweeter. The WHO recommends less than 6 teaspoons of added sugar a day for optimal health benefits. The average Irish person consumes 4 times that amount, 24 teaspoons every day.
Oh, can we put loads of balloons down?
Even health-conscious people can have a high sugar habit without realizing it.
We'll just put 4, I think.
4, but he's not 4. Annie!
I know, we don't
Annie!
The Ryans in Kilkenny eat home-cooked meals, avoid sugary drinks, and limit their treats. Today, Dad Ollie turns 40, so there's a cake for the special occasion.
May is 2, more of a tomboy really than a little girl. She's quite excitable. This is Annie. Annie is 4. Jamie he's 14. He tends to have a sweet tooth, but he's not the worst. I would say these are worse. Yeah?
Can I have a biscuit?
There's always something sweet in the house.
Ollie works in Dublin. On the long commute, he often turns to a sweet snack.
I would get a bar of chocolate before I go to work, because they're handy to have in the car with your tea or your coffee. Around lunchtime I'd have another bar after I have my lunch. And then in the evening on the way home I tend to call into the petrol station. Yeah, lovely.
Is that my head?
Yeah, you can have your head in a minute. We didn't get to cut it yet.
We'll have biscuits with a cup of tea, and I will have those kinds of things. But I find at the weekends when he's around and we go for coffee, and we always would get a piece of cake.
It's always been a part of the way I eat. Never had any weight issues.
I have asked Ollie and Louise to come and see me in clinic. They have no obvious indicators of a high sugar diet apart from some extra weight. But I have had MRI scans done which show they both carry fat around their abdominal organs. Ollie's cholesterol is 6.8 when it should be under 5. And I think the amount of sugar the children are consuming is really worrying. So let's start with the World Health Organization guidelines. So no more than 6 teaspoonfuls of free sugar a day. This is how it looks like. So Ollie, let's have a look at now how much free sugar you are having a day. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. This is almost 4 times the guidelines. The scary thing is that this is around average for an Irish person.
Doesn't make me feel as bad, but still.
Louise, would you like to know how much you are having? Okay. 6, 7, 8, 9.
That's just awful.
Would you like to know how much Jamie is consuming? Okay. 15, 16, 17.
Well, I'd be concerned, I suppose, as to the health impact of that on him if he was to continue eating 17 teaspoons of sugar every day.
So Annie's a 4-year-old and she should be consuming less than 3 teaspoonfuls of free sugar a day. So let's have a look how much she is consuming. 11 and 12. She's only 4.
Yeah. And this is kind of a trend that's been set at an early age, with us allowing them to eat.
I'm the one that does the grocery shopping, and I'm the one that buys a lot of things. I may not eat them myself, but they are available in the house. There's 2 of us in it, you know.
Up to the age of 2 years, children shouldn't have any added sugar or salt in their diet. So May is 2 years of age. So let's have a look how she's doing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Would you like to see what you are eating in a week?
No. Oh. I don't know why I'm laughing. I shouldn't be laughing. Like, that's just awful. There's so much there.
I didn't have a bowl big enough to show what you are eating in a month. So we are going to try to help you over the next 30 days to meet the World Health Organization guidelines.
That'll be good.
Yeah, well.
Good luck, because I think we are all very interested to see if you can do it. The Ryans will be trying to cut back on sugar, while I'm in London meeting an Australian filmmaker who did the exact opposite.
Now, I could have this amount of frozen yogurt, or 11.
Irish audiences might recognise Damon Gammell as an actor, but he has gone on to make one of Australia's most successful documentaries.
So I just went into Jumbo Juice and got me one of these. 139 grams of sugar. I actually need a calculator for this. That is 34 teaspoons of sugar.
Damon decided to go from his regular low-sugar diet to 40 teaspoons a day, eating lots of supposedly healthy foods to find out just how dangerous sugar can be.
This experiment has proven to me that refined sugar and excess fructose are causing serious damage to the health and well-being of millions of people. And as the debate heats up and the food industry fight tooth and nail to shut the message down, we'll be bombarded with conflicting nutritional advice. But for me, quite simply, the proof is in the pudding. About 10 teaspoons of it.
I was walking down a supermarket aisle and I remember picking up a can of tomato soup and seeing that it had 8 teaspoons of sugar in it. And I thought, I don't think many people would know that there's that amount of sugar in this kind of perceived savoury food. I kind of thought, well, I wonder if I could eat what the average Australian is eating in sugar, but not have any junk food. So no chocolate or ice cream or lollies or banoffee pie, nothing like that. Could I only eat this amount of sugar found in hidden, perceived healthy foods that parents often give their kids thinking they're doing the right thing? If you look at things like low-fat yogurts, that's the classic example. Most of them have got 5 or 6 teaspoons of added sugar into them. They put a label on the front that's got a bee and a picture of some fruit, and it looks very healthy, but it's actually got just as much sugar in it as a lot of the other junk food.
Damon's sugar intake from foods like yogurts and smoothies was really high, and the effect on his health was shocking.
I genuinely didn't think we'd get any results. I wasn't having any soft drink or ice cream or chocolate. I was only eating low-fat yogurt and cereal with the glass of juice. Now, most people would say that's fine, that's a healthy breakfast, it's a great way to start your day. After the 60 days, I had full-blown fatty liver disease, I had pre-type 2 diabetes, I had heart disease risks, I had 11 centimetres of visceral fat, which is the fat on the inside around your organs, and I had 8.5 kilos that I'd put on overall.
I'm struggling to believe that you ate exactly the same amount of calories and still gained weight.
It's so rigid in people's minds and doctors' minds that all calories must be equal. But I think the new science is saying a very, very different story.
People think that you eat all of these calories and they come in and they funnel into one single place in your body, and then they go out from there, and each calorie is worth each other calorie. That is absolutely not true. Where those calories come from determine where they go in the body and whether they cause disease or not. But the problem is that the food industry doesn't want you to believe that. They want you to believe this is about energy balance, this is about personal responsibility, this is about what you put in your mouth and whether you exercise or not. Eat less, exercise more. If you're fat, it's your fault. Don't pick on our calories, go pick on somebody else's calories.
So what is the overconsumption of sugar calories, energy from sugar specifically, doing to our bodies? How did Damon end up with health problems like fatty liver disease in just 60 days?
When we're talking about sugar, we have to define it. We're talking about dietary sugar, refined sugar, composed of 2 molecules. One is called glucose. The second molecule is called fructose, and fructose is the molecule that is sweet. Fructose is the molecule we crave.
When you eat common sugar or sucrose, it is broken down in your small intestine into 2 molecules called fructose and glucose. Your pancreas releases insulin, which brings the glucose to cells in your body where it is used as fuel. Meanwhile, fructose goes to your liver where it can be metabolized into energy.
But the liver has a limited capacity to be able to metabolize it. It has an upper limit. And so if you consume over that limit, what happens is that the liver can't process all that energy, and it has no choice but to turn the excess into liver fat. And when that happens, the liver gets sick.
Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease can lead to cirrhosis, liver cancer, and liver failure. It was first diagnosed in children in 1983.
Sugar meets all of the same criteria as alcohol. Alcohol is an energy source, but it is not a nutrient. There is no biochemical reaction in the body that requires alcohol. When consumed in excess, alcohol does damage to your body. We keep alcohol out of the hands of children, but we don't think twice about giving them a glass of soda or orange juice. Children are getting the diseases of alcohol without alcohol, because sugar is the alcohol of the child.
A quarter of Irish children are now overweight or obese. Temple Street Hospital runs a healthy lifestyle program which helps some of the more extreme cases. 220 clinically obese children a year.
Sugar is a huge contributor to obesity in children. Children as young as 2 who weigh twice what they should weigh, who are out of breath building a brick castle on the ground in the consultation room. That's tragic because the children are so small, which indicates a great severity of disease. It is that is going to cause them to die earlier than they should.
The typical child here is 10 years old and weighs 11 stone. The youngest participant referred for treatment was just 10 months old.
Recently, a little 7-year-old boy came in and he asked why, when he goes to his sports training camp, does he get a free energy drink.
Hands on your hips.
The amount of sugar that these drinks contain, you'd need to be exercising for hours to burn that off. And as a child, to try and maintain healthy growth, everything's working against them. I think we have to really look at these uncomfortable relationships with industry and our national sporting bodies as well.
Obesity worldwide has more than doubled since 1980. In 2013, 42 million children under the age of 5 were overweight or obese.
Obesity is killing more people than famine. For the first time ever, we are dying from eating too much rather than too little.
The tragedy of obese children who risk heart disease, who suffer incontinence, who shoulder psychological problems, should be enough to make all parents concerned about sugar. But your children don't have to be overweight to be unhealthy.
There are maybe lean children out there or slim children out there who also have a diet that is laden with sugar. But just because they're not overweight or obese, the parents seem to think it's okay. We know that in adults there are a certain group of people who, in spite of not being overweight, will be metabolically unhealthy, and there is in all likelihood a group of children who are in the same situation because of a profoundly unhealthy diet laden with sugar.
Sugar can damage us without any obvious signs. So how can we cut our consumption? Nutritional therapist Elsa Jones helps people reduce sugar in their diet.
So it's estimated that 75% of all foods have sugar added to them. So if you take a supermarket like this, 3/4 of what you're seeing on the shelves contains added sugar. I've advised a lot of people on how to reduce their sugar intake, and people are often surprised to learn that it's not always about big sacrifices. Sometimes making small swaps can make a big difference. So for example, it may seem obvious, let's say, to choose a reduced sugar baked beans over the regular type. The reduced sugar one contains 1 teaspoon of sugar less per portion than the regular one. So if you're trying to stay within the World Health Organization guidelines of less than 6 teaspoons in a day, choosing the reduced sugar type is worth your while.
The Ryans want tips to kick their sugar habit, and that starts with understanding exactly what added sugar means.
We're talking about sugar that's actually added to a food either by the manufacturer, the consumer, or the cook, okay? But it also applies to sugars found in fruit juices and fruit concentrates, but not whole fruits like the whole orange. So for example, this cranberry juice drink, you're talking about 8 teaspoons of sugar. So these would be the more sort of unobvious, kind of more hidden forms of sugar. So we're counting apple juice, but not apples, orange juice, but not oranges.
So what about the diluted drinks? I tend to buy these because they're no added sugar. How good are they, or am I doing anything right?
Well, it's something I actually get asked about a lot. And yes, concentrated, fruit squashes are quite high in sugar. Now, I know you go for the no added sugar variety. So yes, it does contain considerably less sugar. But I do think you still need to be aware that it still contains concentrated fruit juice. So we do still need to include it as part of our count. Something else to be mindful of too is that when they remove the sugar, they're generally adding artificial sweeteners. So if the kids get used to that sweet taste when they're having a drink, it will be very hard for them as they get older to ever actually drink water. Even the no sugar variety, it can have a detrimental effect on their teeth.
Those yogurts are the ones with less sugar in it.
Over the next month, the Ryans will try to identify and reduce added sugars, especially hidden sugars. They are aiming to get below the recommended guideline of 6 teaspoons a day. In part 2, I'll be finding out how the food industry plays a part in Ireland's hidden sugar habit.
They don't want people to know what is in the food. They don't want to cause people to become anxious.
Sugary drinks now are linked to tens of thousands of deaths worldwide.
A high-sugar Western diet is being blamed for obesity, dental problems.
The two diseases that children never got until 1980 that are now epidemic all over the world are type 2 diabetes and fatty liver disease.
And the Irish are the fourth highest consumers of added sugar in the world.
The WHO have been very clear. If Ireland doesn't act, we will be the fattest country in Europe by 2030.
So why do we overconsume sugar to a dangerous level? I'm having my brain scanned at the National Centre for Advanced Medical Imaging to find out how we are hardwired to respond to even a picture of something sweet. And my brain is responding to the pictures of sugary foods I'm being shown.
So when you actually look at an image that has a sugary picture on it, your brain gets activated. More blood flows to the areas of the brain that is involved with reward. What's happening is if you actually taste sugar on your tongue and you then swallow it and it is enhanced by a positive signal that comes from the gut to the brain, you have this multiple inputs into the brain that allows you to learn that sugar is pleasant. You can actually just look at 4-year-old children that arrive at a party. They will immediately go for the most sugary foods because they've learned very quickly that it is rewarding.
When you eat certain foods, a message is sent to your brain and a chemical called dopamine is released, which gives you a pleasurable feeling, and so you want food again. When you eat sugar, the chemical reward is particularly powerful.
It does the same biochemical thing in the brain that all the drugs of abuse do.
If you get hooked at an early age on sweet, you will always want sweet and sweeter.
For tolerance and dependence, sugar meets the criteria for addiction, hands down.
The Ryans in Kilkenny are determined to kick their high sugar habit. For Dad Ollie, that has meant going cold turkey on the chocolate bars.
I haven't eaten chocolate in about 25 days, which for me is a big achievement because I'll be having it 2-3 times a day at least. And to have it from that to zero is a big deal for me anyway.
Meanwhile, Louise will be trying to cut down on the hidden sugars the family are eating in everyday food and drink.
The sugar is just everywhere. It's in everything.
The key to counting sugars is to know that there are 4 grams of sugar in 1 teaspoon. The World Health Organization advises adults to stay below 25 grams. That is 6 teaspoons a day for optimal health. Forensically examining the grocery labels will be an eye-opener for Louise.
So this is one of my dad's favourites. Per slice, there's 25.6 grams of sugar in it. That's more than your whole day's sugar in one slice. Curry, we tend to make that every now and again. And per 100 grams, there's 5.8 grams of sugar in it. So that's quite high when you take it for the whole jar. And between 5 of us, you know, you'd use the jar. So the shopping is taking longer. I'm having to pick up everything, read the back of all the packets, check the sugar content, work it out, do the calculations. So it's a little bit more challenging.
The relationship with sugar that we develop as children can last a lifetime. So I believe it's vital we address the problem as young as we can, long before problems manifest in adulthood.
The causes of our obesity epidemic are disarmingly simple. Too much energy in, mainly in the form of sugar, and not enough energy out. The majority of our patients would have a very abnormal relationship with sugar. Blood pressure first. We have had people coming here who have been drinking 7 litres of full sugar fizzy drinks every day. Asking them to switch to even diet drinks, it's like asking an alcoholic to stop drinking. Excellent. That's 120 over 78. So calorie from liquid sugar is best not ingested. And it's down, Leo, from 168 feet. Fantastic. And you're fitter, you know.
Liquid sugar in, for example, a fizzy drink dumps glucose and fructose very quickly to your stomach and intestine. Lots of insulin is needed to send that glucose to your cells. Insulin is also needed to help your liver metabolize fructose. Your pancreas can be overwhelmed by the demand for insulin, and that's really dangerous.
That pancreas can only keep pushing out insulin for so long in response to sugar hit after sugar hit after sugar hit. The EPIC Interact study from April of 2013 finally proved per can of sugar-sweetened drinks you consume each day, your risk of developing type 2 diabetes is increased independent of all other factors, including weight.
Type 2 diabetes happens when the pancreas can no longer make sufficient insulin, or the body can't respond to insulin normally. So blood sugar is not controlled, and that causes long-term health problems. John Hancock is 68 years old, and he was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes 30 years ago. John shows us what a lifetime of high sugar, teaspoon after teaspoon, can lead to.
In oral medication, I take 14 in the morning, 12 at night, and then 5 injections a day. All of this medication I use because of my high intake of sugar for years. One day alone, I stopped at a shop in Mullingar, bought 5 chocolate bars, 3 cans of ordinary, not diet minerals. It was gone by Edgeworthstown. It was an addiction.
Now confined to a wheelchair, John has multiple health issues.
I had to have a kidney transplant. I've had a double bypass, gangrene, both legs gone. This is directly from sugar, without a shadow of doubt. I know it, and the experts know it.
That'll be treble 17 for the bull. Yes,
I have the loss of sight. Everything I see is nearly always black and white. I can see about 60% of it.
6-5 lead, a fraction down.
Oh, yeah.
Back in 1995, there were about 60,000 people diagnosed with type 2 diabetes in Ireland. 20 years on, cases had more than tripled. The prediction for 2030 is nearly 250,000 cases. What's hard to grasp is the long-term effect. Hundreds of thousands of teaspoons of excess sugar through a lifetime, impacting on our health in so many ways. How is sugar related to cardiovascular disease?
We now know that sugar is linked to increasing blood pressure, but also very strongly linked to increasing the risk of developing type 2 diabetes. And those are 2 of the major risk factors for heart disease. People who consumed more than 25% of their calories from sugar had triple the rate of cardiovascular mortality compared to people who consumed less than 10% of their calories. And that was even in non-obese people. If you're eating excess sugar, you're still increasing your risk of health problems. I think that's a really important message to get out there.
So even if you are not overweight, a high sugar diet causing high blood glucose and high blood pressure damages your heart. The arteries connected to your heart become narrow or hardened. This restricts oxygen. Damaged blood vessels are vulnerable to clots, which can cause a heart attack or a stroke.
Anyone that uses the argument that added sugar is part of a healthy, balanced diet should also be saying that actually having cigarettes is part of a healthy lifestyle. In America, for the average 4 to 8-year-old child, they recommend no more than 3 teaspoons a day. Now, you take a typical can of cola, and that's having almost triple the amount recommended as a limit for an 8-year-old child. That's putting it in perspective.
Thank you. Louise and Ollie have worked hard to change the eating habits of the children. Fruit is now the standard snack.
I'm full up, I'm full up.
We cut out the junk. So we cut out biscuits, we cut out sweets, we cut out ice cream. I changed type of yoghurt. And then after a while, they stopped wanting them. And they were really addicted to them. They could have had maybe 2 or 3 each a day at that stage.
Best party ever.
Best party ever.
They're so sweet.
Many parents see fruit-sweetened foods and drinks as healthy, but they are not the same as fruit. When you extract or concentrate fruit sugars, they are counted as added sugars. They have the same effect on health as any other sugar, like causing tooth decay.
The main drinks in younger children would be fruit juices, smoothies and cordials. Parents do not realise that there is about 10 spoons of sugar in a can of fizzy drink, but there's about 7 or 8 spoons of sugar in a smoothie.
Sugar causes your teeth to decay by interacting with bacteria in your mouth. Sugar feeds the bacteria and an acid is formed. This acid sticks to your teeth and forms a hole in your tooth. Once a hole is formed, bacteria can enter your tooth and cause infection and further decay.
I've seen lots of young boys particularly destroying their teeth, needing 6, 7, 8 fillings at the age of 16, and it's very often drinking sports drinks has done that to them. One sports drink we came across had 14 teaspoons of sugar in it. In adulthood, a person who comes into me with significant decay, it's usually caused by having a teaspoon of sugar in the coffee, or in Ireland we have a huge habit of having a cup of tea or coffee and dipping a biscuit into it. No amount of brushing will ever counteract all that sugar, the damage it's doing to your teeth. I would love to see a situation where food labelling was clearer and more visible. Everybody can understand the concept of a teaspoon of sugar, and I think you might reconsider your choices in your child's lunchbox if you could see a large sign on the front of that health bar with 3 spoons of sugar, 5 spoons of sugar.
To simply understand a label on a cereal box or on a sandwich, you need a magnifying glass and you need a degree in nutrition, and you will still struggle.
They don't want you to know how much is too much. Because if you knew how much was too much, breakfast cereal would disappear from the planet in a nanosecond.
Current food labelling on sugar was decided by politicians in Brussels back in 2010. Nessa Childers was part of the debate.
In terms of the billion the food lobby spent, the public health lobby were vastly outnumbered by them. So that's difficult, and there needs to be transparency. What shocked me was the politicians that allowed themselves to be lobbied successfully. There's big food, big pharma, big alcohol and big tobacco, and financial services. These are the people that run the world. We have to make our opinions known through basically scaring politicians to stand up to the big lobbies.
Nessa says the food industry didn't want clearer labelling. As someone who finds the labelling really confusing, I want to hear directly from industry on why the labelling can't be more clear.
There is very specific food labelling legislation which the industry complies with, and even within that legislation there's specific legislation which determines what sugars are defined and have to be listed on food labels, and the food industry fully complies with that.
Do you believe that sugar is bad for us?
Sugar, like any other food or nutrient, can be consumed and enjoyed as part of a balanced and varied diet. It obviously has to be consumed in moderation and in accordance with a person's lifestyle and health needs.
Does the industry feel particular responsibility towards children?
We have an important part to play in tackling childhood obesity. The measures that we can take as an industry, including providing comprehensive information on pack to allow consumers to make informed choices.
I was very disappointed to see that industry is sticking to the letter of legislation, but doesn't seem to acknowledge the huge dangers of our sugar culture, the need for radical change from an environment laden with the substance that can make us fat and sick.
In 1994, the CEOs of every major tobacco firm went in front of US Congress and swore under oath they did not believe nicotine was addictive or smoking caused lung cancer.
Do you believe nicotine is not addictive?
I believe nicotine is not addictive, yes.
I believe that nicotine is not addictive.
I believe that nicotine is not addictive.
We see the food industry engaging the same kind of denialism when it comes to the links between sugar and chronic disease. They need to reduce the amount of sugar they're adding, and they need to make sure the labelling is clear so that the public can make informed choices.
We've done it with tobacco. We've done it here with tobacco. We may be taking to international courts over it, but we've done it.
And there is no doubt we need to take action. What we know about excess sugar consumption is scary, but what we don't know could be even worse. New theories of how sugar affects our brains from cradle to grave are truly shocking.
Even in the womb, we're being influenced by food choices of the mother. We can actually transmit our food tastes to the next generation. She is predisposing the child to eat the same food as a preference later on. They will prefer the same food.
The tragedy of being born with the predisposition to overconsume sugar is terrifying, because it maps out such a difficult path ahead through childhood and into adolescence.
High sugar mimics the effect of high anxiety in the body. Because what does anxiety do in the body? It releases enormous quantities of sugar for energy. So if you're afraid, sugar is released in the body in order for you to run away or to take action. But if you're taking high energy food, that high energy sugar is already in the blood. So you get a simulation of anxiety. We now think that depression in adolescents may at least partially be explained by their high intake of high sugar.
New research is pointing to a lifelong negative effect, more subtle than diabetes or rotten teeth. It's horrifying to think that your mood, your memory, and even your personality can be affected by your sugar habit.
We know that people with type 2 diabetes double their risk of Alzheimer's disease. We know that people will age quicker. We know that mental activity will decrease. So this is a worry that the IQ of the human race will decrease with this epidemic.
Inconsistent blood sugar levels in the brain affect different areas, such as the prefrontal cortex, where you can get problems with your ability to think. Damage to a part of the brain called the hippocampus, where your long-term memories are stored, can effectively erase the very essence of you.
So the hippocampus is essentially the narrative of you. What happened to me at certain times of my life, where I was born, where I grew up. When I say the hippocampus shrinks, I'm talking about the actual person becomes impaired.
What a tragic conclusion to a lifetime of too much sugar. Memories in fragments, the person themselves fading away. This, as much as anything, should spur us to action, to count the teaspoons and cut down. A month ago, the Ryan family embarked on a quest to quit their high sugar habit. They sought out hidden sugars, sacrificed sweet treats, and spent hours studying labels. It's time to see whether it has all paid off. So, Ollie, you were taking 22 teaspoons a day in added sugars, and you cut them down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teaspoons.
That's great.
That is a huge reduction. Well done.
That's great.
That's great.
Louise, you were already health aware, 9 teaspoons of sugar a day, and you cut down to the same as Ollie, 5 teaspoons.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, that's good.
Jamie was consuming a lot of sugar, 17 teaspoons a day, and he has cut down to 1, 2, 3 teaspoons a day.
Well, he'll be really surprised at that.
You'd be happy as well.
I was particularly worried about Annie because at the age of only 4, she was having quite high consumption of sugar at 12 teaspoons a day, and she has now cut down her sugar intake to the same as Jamie, 3 teaspoons a day.
That's great.
Yeah, it is.
May is only 2 years of age, and at that age, children shouldn't be having barely any sugar at all. She was having 5 teaspoons a day, and now she's having 2 teaspoons.
That's great.
So your family were consuming in 1 week this much, but now you have cut it down to this.
That is phenomenal.
Ollie, your cholesterol level 30 days ago was 6.8, and now your total cholesterol has dropped down to 5.2.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's good.
Very impressive change.
The proof is in the pudding. Ollie's cholesterol came way down. Our visceral fats came way down just by reducing our sugars. So therefore, it seems to me that sugar must be some kind of a substance that's having a negative impact on our health and our systems.
The Ryans have shown how you can tackle sugar on a personal level with a lot of commitment. Bringing that commitment to a community level is more difficult, but here in County Louth, one school principal is determined to empower her pupils with knowledge.
So if we were to choose for a little snack, banana or cereal bar, which should we go with? Ben?
The banana.
Why?
Because the banana has natural sugars and fibre, and the cereal bar has lots of added sugar.
Added sugar. Well done, Ben. What can too much sugar do? We not only tell the children this food is good, this food is bad, we show them the effects on the digestive system, on the cardiovascular system, so that they know why the food is not good and they can make that choice for themselves then as adults later on.
I don't think this is a typical Irish school.
No, perhaps it's not, but I know myself from statistics, obesity and diabetes are on the increase, and I suppose because of that I want it to be a healthy school where we have a generation of people going forward that will be healthy and that won't need to be using hospital facilities.
We were skinny 30 years ago. So what happened? What didn't happen was that people woke up one morning and decided that they're going to eat too much. What happened was the processed food began to appear here from the 1980s on.
The cause is our toxic food environment. The change in our environment changed our biochemistry, which changed our behavior. And the only way to fix the problem is to change the environment back.
Can we go back 30 years? I think maybe we could to some degree. In fact, we're going to have to.
So tell me, what do you have there in your lunchbox?
I have carrot sticks, banana, apple and a slice of brown bread.
Very good, and you have no sweets there?
No. I eat sweets a little bit, but not often.
One can only exercise personal responsibility if you have knowledge and the right information, and choice. We have no choice because it's become so pervasive, it's become unavoidable, and then the information is misleading, and therefore how can people exercise personal responsibility?
We have a very abnormal relationship with sugar. It is addictive, we are hooked, and it is driving disease. And our challenge is to change that pattern of behaviour.
I'd walk into the shop and straight away you'd see the sweets, so I'd try to walk away from that aisle and just go into a different aisle.
You find it tempting?
Yeah.
Type 2 diabetes kills someone every 6 seconds worldwide now, and this is a disease caused by diet. The fact that children are getting fatty liver disease, they're getting more and more obese. I think we've reached a point where we have to take action.
Children are constantly being targeted through adverts to buy things that are not good for them. And we all understand that businesses have to promote themselves, etc., etc., but when it's not in the best interests of children's health, I have a real problem with that.
You've got to mobilise consumers in these issues so that they start putting pressures on the people that can make those decisions. So you go from consumers to politicians who then tell the food industry that this is what has to happen.
Well, there's another thing to get your pulse racing. The new cast in brand new medical drama Code Black, starting here on RT1 tomorrow night at 10:15. Next though, Claire Byrne is back live with topical debate and some more Bowie chat coming up.